Hi guys, this is going to be the tutorial that's going to show you how to make the Moss Stitch Slouch Hat. And I have this one, has a light border, and I used variegated yarn. This is a lace yarn that I'm using. And then I just found this really pretty teal. I couldn't find a good border, so I just used black. And I'm going to show you how to make one of these. The reason why I haven't really did a tutorial showing you how to make one of these because when I made the beanie, the Moss Hat beanie, there was a lady who pointed out that the picture of the beanie on the front of the video, and the one that I show in the video, it's the moss stitch kind of goes diagonally, and in the tutorial it went straight up and down. I don't know if you can see it. Like, you can see it kind of maybe on this one. See how the pattern kind of goes diagonal, these little things that stick up. And in the other tutorial they were going up and down, and I had not noticed this. And when she mentioned it to me, I thought, wow, yeah, it really made a difference. I really liked it when they went diagonal. And I was trying to find out the pattern of how to make it diagonal. I mean, I knew how to make it diagonal, but there was not a set pattern to make it diagonal. So the way I'm going to show you today is how to check whether it's going diagonal or not as you're making it. So you're going to have to check, like I did with these hats, every row to make sure they're going diagonal. So I'm going to make the tutorial, but I'm just going to have to do the best I can. So first off, I'm going to show you how to start the rim of the hat. And what you're going to need for this project is you're going to need a tapestry needle, because you're going to have to sew in the top of your hat. You're going to need a measuring tape. This is in centimeters. And you need a measuring tape that at least goes up to 25 centimeters or almost 10 inches. And I'm sure most of them will. It's easier if you get this kind. I know my husband's got plastic snappy kind. Kind of a pain to work with. Anyway, you'll also need a marker, a pair of scissors, and a 5mm hook or a size H hook. And you'll also need, but you don't have to, 2 different color yarn. But if you like the color of the yarn that you're using and you want to use it throughout the whole thing, that's okay. But I feel like it definitely looks better if you have a different color on the rim. And then you have this kind of separation going. Usually I like to have my rim be a bit darker, but you don't have to. But you can make the whole hat with just one skein. But like I said, and this is how much? How many yards? Oh, this says it's 273 yards or 250 meters. And it's 100 grams or 3.52 ounces. So 3.5 ounces. And this is also 4-ply worsted weight yarn, since it's 100% acrylic. And it's the same with this, which I'm going to be using for my rim. It's also worsted weight yarn, 4-ply for the US and 10-ply for Australia. But like I said, you can make the whole hat in one skein if you want. So let's get started. Okay, to get started, it doesn't matter how long of a tail that you have. You don't need a really long one, I should say, but I wouldn't have it really short either, because you want to work over it a little bit just to hide it. So I got a little tail going. So to begin, you want to chain 12. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And now the second chain from the hook, you want to do a single crochet using the top loop only. Each chain, as you can see, has 3 little sections, and I'm only going through that very top one, leaving the other 2 at the bottom. I'm putting a single crochet, and just continue to single crochet down your chain, and at the end of this row you should have 11 single crochets. And always count to make sure that you have 11 stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Okay, when you reach the end of your row, you want to chain 1 and turn. And again, you want to work with only the back loops from the previous round. So if you can see here how it's kind of facing you more slanted this way, when you flip it over, I should say turn it to work on the next row, you can see that this top loop here kind of sticks up, and that's your back loop. That's the loop you'll be working with. And I also bring up my tail up at this point, and I'm going to work over it this row. So going through these back loops only. Whoops. If I get any closer, I'm going to go out of focus. So I'm only picking up this very back loop. You should only have 1 loop you're going under. And as I do this, I'm usually counting to make sure that I'm getting 11. But I'm talking to you now, so not really counting, but I'll count at the end. Going through this back loop gives it the ridge. Okay, I'm going to count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Okay. And you want to chain 1 and turn again. And as you can see, there's a little ridge running, little ridge running down this way where you didn't go through the other loop. So then you go right into that first back loop, and you're going to be repeating what you did last round. Sorry, I'm so close, it's so hard to stay on camera. So you're going to be going through those back loops only again, and single crocheting down your 11 stitches. And when you get to the end of the row, you will always chain 1 and turn and just repeat. And you will do this until you have a total of 60 rows completed. And it's pretty easy to count because you have this ridge running across it. So you know before the ridge there's 2 rows. On this side it's a little different, see, because the ridge is down here. So make sure that when you start counting it, you count from this side where you know there's 2 solid rows at the beginning, and then you can go 2, and then you just, let me get my other one here. See the ridges that go across? You know you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. You just keep counting in between the ridges. You know you have 2 rows, and you just keep making your rows back and forth until you have a total of 60 rows. Okay, when you've finished your 60 rounds, you'll see that you have these little sections here. And what I do, this is my last round finished. It's okay if it's all twisted and everything when you were working on it, how it kind of twists like that, it's okay. Because now you're going to flatten it out. Folding it over like that. And you want to line up your stitches. You should have 11 on each side so you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I know that this here is my 11th. So I'm going to stick my hook through that 11th one. And also I'm going to find my last stitch on this side, last stitch I worked. And I'm going to put it through there. And then you just simply slip stitch to sew. You just line up, make sure it's lined up, go into the next 2 stitches and slip stitch. Again, you're just going through the stitch on this side and then the next stitch on the other side. You're sewing these 2 pieces together, just slip stitching as you go along. Just try to make sure that you're staying straight and that you're going under the full stitches of both. When you've gotten all 11 stitches sewn, you'll chain 1, and then now you'll notice how this has kind of a ridge here. Now that'll be the inside of the hat. So you want to turn your hat inside out, or now you have the good side facing you. Okay, and now this first section here, each section I'll be calling these sections. Your first section here, in all of them, you'll have 2 stitches that will fit because you have 2 rows here. And I always try to put my single crochets in the thickest part on the top here. This one we began on the 2nd row, so we'll be doing our first part of this section, doing 1 single crochet here, and we'll be ending the round, finishing our 2nd stitch in this section. So in the first you want to put a single crochet, and then you'll work your first full section here. You'll put a single crochet. I usually try to work in the stitch after this separator and put a single crochet there because it's a pretty thick spot. And then here it's kind of a thick spot right before the separator, and I'll put a single crochet there. So I'll always be putting my single crochets in the same place in each section. So again, in the next one, single crochet there, single crochet there. There's my next 2 single crochets in this next section. And you're going to continue to do your 2 single crochets worked in each section all the way around. And so when you get back up to the beginning, you should have 60 single crochets. Again, let me get a little closer here. Going into the stitch after the separator here, and then right before the separator on this side. Those are the 2 thickest parts. So just continue to work your single crochets all the way around. When you get back up to the beginning, make sure you count your stitches and make sure you have 60. Okay, I just finished my round. I counted my stitches. I have 60 stitches, and once you do 2, go into this very first single crochet that you did of the round, and you want to do a slip stitch and then chain 1. Now we're going to be doing the crab stitch. This part of the hat that we're doing right now is going to be the very edge of the hat where your forehead is. So I don't know for you how tight that you crochet, but it's always kind of loose for me. So I tighten it up a little bit using this round by skipping stitches and stuff. But if it's fine for you like this, then there's no need to skip stitches. Or if it's just slightly big for you, then don't skip as many stitches. Just tighten it up a little bit. So it's up to you here. You can adjust it however the size that you need. What I do is I go right into the very next stitch. You're going to be working the opposite direction that you usually work in. So if you're right-handed, you'll be working now to the right. And if you're left-handed, you'll now be working to the left. So what you do for the crab stitch is you're going the opposite direction. You're going into the stitch, pulling up a loop, just like you would a normal single crochet, only you're going the opposite direction. You yarn over and you pull through both loops. Go into the next stitch, same thing, go right into the stitch, pull up a loop, just like you would a single crochet. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Now, this is where I always skip. So you want to skip 1 stitch, and then in the next, go in and do a crab stitch there. And then do a regular crab stitch in the next stitch. And then I skip a stitch and go into the next. So you'll skip a stitch, do a crab stitch, then do a normal crab stitch in the next stitch, and then you'll skip a stitch. So you'll do skip, crab stitch, skip, crab stitch, crab stitch. So I just did a skip, crab stitch, so now it's time for me to skip a stitch and do a crab stitch. Then I'll do another crab stitch as normal. Then I'll skip a stitch and do a crab stitch. Then I do another crab stitch as normal, skip a stitch, do a crab stitch. Do a crab stitch as normal, then skip a stitch and do a crab stitch. Then do a crab stitch as normal, and then you'll skip a stitch and crab. Continue to do this all the way around. And when you get to the very end of your round, you'll see that this is your beginning crab stitch here. You just want to go into that stitch or the stitch before, doesn't really matter, and do a slip stitch and chain 1. Now here's the time where you want to put on your hat. Make sure that the opening is not too tight, and mine, I'm checking it now, it's perfect, but everybody has different size heads and everybody crochets differently, so it's very important at this point to test to see if it's too tight or not. If it's not too tight, then you can cut your yarn and pull it through. And if it is too tight, go ahead and rip out some stitches and then just crab stitch normally. Don't skip any stitches. And then when you get to the end, check it again. And if it's right tightness, then you're good. If it's still too tight, back up even more stitches. And then just do regular crab stitches without skipping any stitches until you get it at a good tightness around the head. Now let me just back up a bit. Now you've got your band, your rim, and this tail here. I usually like to hide it down the inside of the hat. So I'm going to get my tapestry needle real quick. Find my little ridge here, and I just work not all the way to the end. I stop just about a thumbnail before I get to the end because I don't want it to stick out. Pull it tight and then just kind of tug on it a bit, and then I cut my yarn, leaving just a little bit of a tail here because it will loosen as you go. Okay, now this is the part where we have our crab stitches, so we know that that's done. So we'll flip our work this way. Now we've got the ridge part underneath. So this is the wrong side, what they call the wrong side. So you want the right side facing you. And we're going to be working our single crochets just like we did on this side in our sections, working 2 single crochets in each top section. So we need to grab our yarn that we want to use for the main section of your hat, and then go ahead and make your slip knot, and then I'll see you back here in a moment. Okay, so I got my main color, And I'm going to attach it same place where we started on this side, 2 stitches. I'm going to start on the second half of this just like we began the other side, and I'm just going to do a single crochet attachment, and I'm going to be working over my tail as I go, and I'm just going to be going in just like we did before, 2 single crochets in each section, trying to stay in the thickest part. Now in this section, as you can see, there's a kind of a hole, so I go even a little deeper and grab the stitch underneath it just to close the hole up just a bit, hiding my tail as I go. There we go, now my tail's hidden. So just go around doing this like you did before, and again at the end of this round you should have 60 stitches. Make sure that you count, and I'll see you back here in a moment.